Welcome to Daily Papers, where we break down the latest research into bite-sized pieces. Today, we're asking a question that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction, but is actually happening in boardrooms right now. Can we replace human survey participants with an AI?
It's a really tempting idea. If you're a company trying to figure out if people will like your new product, you'd normally have to spend months and thousands of dollars running surveys and focus groups. The appeal of just asking an AI is obvious. You could, in theory, get your answers in minutes for the cost of a few API calls.
Exactly. You could prompt a large language model, or LLM, by saying, "You are a 45-year-old mother of two from the Midwest who is concerned about the environment. Would you buy this electric car?" The AI would generate an answer, and you'd have your data. These AI stand-ins are called synthetic users, or silicon samples.
But the big question, which is the focus of today's paper, is do they actually work? Are these simulated answers a reliable guide to what real humans think? Or are we just getting a very convincing but ultimately fake reflection of ourselves?
This paper, titled "When Synthetic Users Fail," puts that exact question to the test. Researchers from the Stevens Institute of Technology and the University of Massachusetts Boston created a rigorous benchmark to find out when this AI substitution is a good idea and when it fails spectacularly.
They didn't just test it on one little survey. They used two massive, independent sets of real human data. The first was the General Social Survey, which asks people in the US about their social attitudes, things like happiness, trust, and political opinions.
The second was the World Values Survey, which is even more ambitious. It asks people in 63 different countries about their core values, views on science, religion, immigration, and so on. This is a huge test for the AI to see if it can handle complex cross-cultural differences.
And they didn't just use one AI. They tested 4 different models, from a relatively small one to a huge frontier-scale model, the kind of thing that powers the most advanced chatbots today. They wanted to see if just getting a bigger, smarter AI would fix any problems they found.
But here's the most important part of their setup. To know if an AI is doing a good job, you need something to compare it to. It's not enough for the AI to just guess a person's answer correctly. It has to do better than a much simpler, more basic approach.
So the researchers built what they call a naive demographic baseline. You can think of it like a smart lookup table. It's not an AI, it just uses the real survey data. If you ask it to predict an answer for, say, a college-educated man from the West Coast, it looks at all the real answers from people with that profile and gives you the most common one.
The real test is, can the fancy, powerful AI pretending to be a specific person predict that person's answer better than this simple, data-driven lookup table?
So let's get to the results. The paper highlights 2 major failures that happened across all the models they tested in both the US and the international surveys. The first failure is a big one. At the individual level, the LLMs offer no advantage.
That's a bit of a bombshell. When trying to guess how one specific person would answer a question, the AIs were, at best, only as good as the simple demographic lookup table. For the US survey, it was basically a tie.
But for the cross-cultural world values survey, it was much worse. The AIs were shockingly inaccurate, falling 11 to 22 percentage points below the simple baseline. Let that sink in. Asking a cutting-edge AI to role-play as a person from another country gave the researchers less reliable information than just looking up what people from that country typically say.
Which leads us to the second and maybe even more worrying failure. Paper calls it demographic overdetermination. A much simpler way to say it is stereotyping.
This is really the core of the problem. The AIs treat a person's demographic profile as their destiny. They create caricatures, not people. For example, in the real world, your political views might explain a tiny fraction of your opinion about, say, your confidence in banks.
The paper found it accounts for about 1.5% of the variation in real human answers, but the LLMs behave as if it explains almost everything, up to 67%. The AI essentially thinks, oh, you have this political view? Then you must think this way about banks. It wildly exaggerates the connection between who we are and what we believe.
And here's the twist. The bigger, more capable, more expensive models weren't better. They were often worse. The most advanced models stereotyped just as strongly and sometimes more than the smaller ones. You can't just fix this by upgrading your AI.
So you might be thinking, who cares if an AI stereotypes in a simulation? Well, it matters a great deal if you're a company or a policymaker using this data to make real-world decisions.
The paper analyzes this directly. Imagine a marketing team using synthetic users to figure out which group of people to target for a new product. The AI, with its tendency to stereotype, would inflate the differences between groups by 2 to 4 times.
It would present tiny, insignificant differences in opinion as massive, unbridgeable gaps. Based on that flawed data, a team would end up targeting the wrong group of people in more than half of the cases they tested. And even more disturbingly, the AI would frequently discover deep social divisions between groups that simply do not exist in the real world.
It literally manufactures conflict and polarization. It might tell a product team that young and old people are on completely different planets regarding their product, when in reality their views are quite similar. A decision made on that evidence would be fundamentally wrong.
So the paper's main takeaway isn't just don't use AI for surveys. It's more nuanced. The authors propose a validation framework, a kind of safety checklist for anyone who wants to use synthetic users.
It includes simple but crucial steps. First, always test your synthetic users against a simple baseline, like the demographic lookup table. If your fancy AI can't beat that, it's not adding any real value. Second, you have to specifically test for this stereotyping effect.
And finally, a crucial warning. Never assume a bigger, newer, more capable model is a safer one. As this paper shows, it might just be a more confident and convincing stereotyper.
It's a powerful and timely reality check. It shows that while AI can generate text that looks and feels like a human survey response, the underlying logic can be a funhouse mirror of our society, one that distorts and exaggerates our differences in dangerous ways.
A fascinating paper that shows why, for now, if you want to know what people really think, you still need to go out and ask them. That's all for today's Daily Papers.